Hey guys, so we got the patch 0.5 drop yesterday, and my goodness, there was a lot in it, and there were definitely a lot of nerfs. So today, I wanted to go over what I think are, I'd say, the most impactful nerfs and buffs that were in this patch, and some kind of like, changes, I guess, too. But we'll go over that in a little bit in more detail. So starting off with the nerfs. So one of the biggest nerfs that we got in the game was to Leech. This was something that was basically targeting the kind of blood mage playstyle where you are using your HP as mana, and literally your HP is going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, which is kind of like a main culprit for the cast on crit kind of playstyle, which I think at this point is probably going to be for the most part dead. Now, there are some interesting ways to do, mana and resource recovery with Quipolotto's thesis that people have come up with, but I have a feeling that either A, that's not going to be as strong as we think it is, or B, GGG is going to see that and probably going to be nerfing it as well, because it really seems like they don't want that cast on crit playstyle where you're really just like spamming comets and skills over and over and over again at like a super high level. So right now, Leech completely nerfed, and mostly affecting Cock and like Blood Mage and that playstyle. And they also, as a part of this, also nerfed Dodri's Undoing, which was what allowed people to make their curses do damage. And they changed how that works. And while it is still doing damage, it's not nearly as consistent and fast as it was before. So this kind of cast on crit playstyle is, for the most part, either dead in the water right now or probably going to be nerfed a little bit further, with things like Quipolotto's Thesis maybe getting nerfed a little bit more. Now, spellcasters also got hit in this regard because spellcasters in general use a lot of mana, and when they scale their plus levels to a high level, the mana consumption is pretty dang insane. So as a result of Leech getting nerfed here, spellcasters are also nerfed because they can't leech mana as well, they can't leech life as well. It's just overall tough right now for spellcasters because they also went and nerfed Energy Shield. Now, they have basically like completely gutted most things that give you delay, like energy shield recharge delay and speed. They've nerfed everything across the board by like 30 to 40% for the energy shield recharge speed, and like delay is, for the most part, like there's almost no way for you to get instant delay for your energy shield recharge other than like a couple niche areas, including like martial artists, for example. So pretty much the energy shield playstyle, like the pure energy shield playstyle that most of these casters do end up going, unless you're going like a lot of life, these casters are going to be struggling unless they find some way to leech energy shield, which I think Blood Mage is one of the few that can do it. And they also nerfed the Covenant Robe, right? So it's going to be a little bit tough for that. They also nerfed Patient Barrier, which is, I would say, the best node for Energy Shield. It wasn't much. It went from 60% to 50%, but still 10% nerf there. And Ghost Dance also got a pretty significant nerf as well for those Energy Shield evasion characters, where in the past you got your energy shield back instantly when you got hit, but now with Ghost Dance, the new version, it's a over time. I think it's 2% over 4 seconds, basically, or when 2% over when you've gotten hit recently, which is about 4 seconds. So that is another big nerf. Now, in addition to that, they also nerfed +2 levels. Now, specifically, they did not nerf the +2 levels like directly for spells. Spells didn't get touched in that aspect. So if you're running a staff or a wand, it's still going to be +7 at the highest end for two-handed staves, and I think it's like +4, +5 for wands. So it's still there for wands and foci as well, +2. But for attack weapons, so the bows, talismans, quarterstaves, etc., they got nerfed. So it went from +7 max on two-handers to +5 max, and then +5 max on single one-handers down to +3. So pretty significant nerfs there. Now, the reason why I think they didn't nerf spellcasters is, again, because this leech nerf should potentially make it so that it's really hard to scale your mana, your levels too high because mana consumption is going to be really, really high, right? And right now, I'd say spellcasters, for the most part, outside of spell levels, it's pretty dang hard to scale. I'd say it's not as important for attack skills, but for spells, it's pretty dang important. So maybe they're going to be taking a look at that to see how things balance out. And if it ends up still being overpowered, they might do further balance changes. We don't know. Now, in addition to that, Utreds got nerfed, right? All across the board, it went from +3 to +2 levels. Dial's Desire lost 5% quality, and also Vertex +4 skills completely dead. So plus skills in general got a pretty big nerf there, but still, it's going to be a premium stat. They haven't found the full solution yet, and they said this in the live stream, so that makes a lot of sense. Now, as for classes and weapons, oof. Pathfinder got nerfed. The stacks for their poisons got nerfed from like 35% reduced duration or less duration to 50%, which is crazy, which basically means poisons are huge nerfed. Flubgun effect, Keck W. But also, in addition to Pathfinder getting nerfed in that aspect, Toxic Growth also now has a max limit of 5 pustules. Poison Burst also got its damage reduced and duration reduced. And Plague Fingers now don't let you apply elemental ailments. So that was one of the most powerful things about Plague Fingers before, because you were able to apply ailments and shock enemies and freeze enemies and things like that. So that is not allowed anymore. Honestly, I didn't think poisons were all that powerful. Like, they were really good, don't get me wrong, right? Especially when it came to low-level funding for how much like mileage you were getting. But at the top end, I didn't think it was that crazy. Now, maybe it's because, you know, Leech gets nerfed and all this stuff like Cock Comet gets nerfed, and then this is like the next best thing, which I still don't even think so. I think, like, for example, Twisters is crazy, and they still haven't addressed that. But you know, I think they're thinking about like, hey, this is going to get nerfed, so this might be overpowered, so they're going to change that as well. Now, in addition to that, crossbows endgame also got touched. They got nerfed. So Rotha's Assault, which was one of the support gems that crossbow users used, got nerfed, right? Loaded 4 bolts now when you dodge, previously 5. Loads 3 additional bolts, previously 4, right? And less attack speed. Now, this isn't a big deal, but Arjun's Metal is the bigger deal. Now grants 25% chance to load a bolt into all crossbow skills on dealing killing blow, your killing blow with supported skills. Previously, it was 100%. So basically, it was always reloading. Now it's only a 25% chance. It is a huge nerf to crossbow endgame. Now, not grenades, but like regular crossbow, like explosive shot, for example. That is going to be seeing a huge nerf. So we'll see how that does in the endgame now. And then beyond that, unfortunately, our boy Mace's and Shield Wall got absolutely gutted. Karn tested it, and I think it was about like 40% damage reduction, which was like insane, right? 40% less damage is quite insane. I understand, like, campaign, they were really strong, but like, to be honest, I didn't think that Shield Wall was that much stronger than Twisters or like that much stronger than grenades, for example, right? EDC during the campaign, also extremely strong. Now, the thing is, Shield Wall was very strong in the early game in the campaign, but late game in the end game, they, in terms of like maybe top level power for single target, was okay, like pretty good, but like map clearing did not compare to any of these other ones, right? Like, for example, Twisters, it just does everything, right? So I'm a little bit curious as to why Maces and Shield Wall got gutted. Like, it's a meme that Warrior's gonna get gutted every single patch, but it actually happened again. Like, what? So that's a little bit sad to see it go. Now, in terms of some of the other ones, oh yeah, also Infernal Legion. This one got big nerf, right? I don't know why I have it over here. These the ones should be over there by the other kind of skills and playstyles, right? So Infernal Legion, this one also got a huge nerf. So Infernal Legion, as you might know, is a support gem that allows you to take your minions, have their life be burning down, and you deal damage as you're burning down their life. Now, in this update, in this change, it makes it so that Infernal Legion does basically over 50% damage nerf, right? It goes from 25% max life damage to 10% max life damage, which is quite insane. And there was a bug where if you're using an Omen Scepter with Malice on it, the aura that made it so that enemies had critical weakness, anytime the enemy had any sort of critical chance, like your ability to crit them with Infernal Legion, allowed Infernal Legion to crit 100% of the time. And I think that that is a gigantic nerf, like both of these combined, right? Crip, I think, said that he's done some math and said that if you're using like the Huntress stuff with the new minions, it's still fine. But I don't know, man. Like the fact that these two got completely gutted, you can no longer crit with this, and then also like the 50% damage nerf, it feels like it's quite insane to me. So I don't know. I think it's a huge nerf, but we'll have to see when it gets in the actual game. Now, there's some other miscellaneous nerfs here with like skills. Time of Need completely gutted, right? No longer duration based, it's cooldown based, so no longer 0 duration warrior for Time of Need. Gathering Storm also got completely gutted because you can no longer do Gathering Storm frost walls. Now, they did make it so that it blows up bells, which is kind of cool, but it is not nearly as much damage as what it used to be. And the Reverse Chill, also dead. Like, there are some niche ways to get it to work, kind of, but the archetype itself, I think, is just completely dead with them removing the ability to get the gloves that enable it. So really unfortunate. Now, there are also a little bit of some other miscellaneous things that were pretty big. Now, corrupting and sanctifying items got completely changed. So now, instead of being able to throw Vol orbs or sanctifying orbs on like a random item and just getting the good result, you now need to divine them before you Vol them and sanctify them. And there's also no more omens of corruption. They got rid of it. So how the corrupting now works is that it takes the current value that you have on the item and then it applies a multiplier to it. So it either multiplies it by a positive number to make it go up, or it multiplies it by a number higher than 1 to make it go up, or a number lower than 1 to make it go down, right? And that was not the case before. Before, it just randomly rolled it. So in a sense, it divined it and for you and then corrupted it for you. So this is a big change, and corrupting is going to be a lot less consistent and also a lot more expensive because you need to spend the divines, right? Chaotic omens also got a big nerf. So your chaotic omen of like rarity, monsters, and like quantity effectiveness, I think is the last one, right? Those ones are completely changed. So before, you only needed 1. Let's say like you wanted rarity only on your maps, you could just use an Omen of Chaotic Rarity, and then you could roll it with the Chaos Orbs, and you'd only get rare affixes now, rarity affixes. Now it's the opposite. If you use a Chaotic Rarity, it's no rarity affixes and only the other ones. So now you need 3 Omens for the effect of 1 in the past, essentially, which kind of sucks. It's like not going to be a big deal at the end game when you're like, you know, you have a lot of money, right? But working up to it, it's going to cost more money. But the most annoying thing is now you need 3 items in your inventory to be able to start rolling your maps. I think that's kind of annoying. The fact that they went and got rid of like instilling maps and also desecrating maps in the past to try to reduce the amount of like annoying friction you have when rolling maps, only to add this to make it a little bit more friction again, is a little bit annoying. But honestly, I don't think price-wise it's probably going to be that much more expensive, because now the way Ritual works is we're always getting omens. So hopefully that will kind of balance things out. But again, it is a little bit annoying that we need to press some more buttons and have more items in our inventory. But lastly here, the reason why this is not in red, because like, I'm not entirely sure if I would call this a nerf. This is more of like a change, but there is a nerf associated with this. So I think negative rarity is going to be like a lot more specialized now, because they said in the patch notes that now to get exceptional bases, you need to specialize into your atlas, or else you don't get them. Same with like fracturing orbs and even like precursor tablets, the regular ones and the overseer ones. So negative rarity, now you have to specialize in it for exceptional bases. And then also they nerfed greater and perfect orb drop rates, especially for the transmutes and augs. So this is going to be making it so that it's a lot more expensive to do negative rarity farming, and also a lot more expensive to roll on high level items. So we'll see how that works out. But those, I would say, are the major nerfs. Now we got some buffs. So the ones that I'm going to call out here specifically are going to be the red swapping, and I'm going to call out the divine orb drop rates. These two, I think, are the biggest ones. Now these are like, there's some other ones that are they're decent, but these are the ones I want to call out, right? Res swapping and divine orb drop rate. So they have increased the drop rate of divine orbs. Now, of course, again, we are getting more syncs right now with like this right here. So it makes kind of sense that they're going to make drop rate of this a little bit higher. Also, they said Mage Blood is going to be a big sync too. So we'll see what this does to like the actual inflation of divine orbs. But the bigger one is res swapping. So in case anybody doesn't know how res swapping works, in Path of Exile 1, you were able to go and be like, okay, we'll have an item with cold res on it, but I need lightning res. That's really annoying. In Path of Exile 2, you had to basically get a completely new item to be able to fix that, right? But in Path of Exile 1, you could just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to go and swap it from cold res to lightning res. And boom, easy, right? And they're adding this with these new items called fluxes. And there are 3 fluxes that you can apply to your item, and they are basically going to work kind of like, from what I can tell, like chaos orbs, right? So there's kind of like 2 scenarios for how these fluxes will work. So one, flux 1 will say, this one, it'll re-roll your lightning resistance to either cold or fire resistance of the same tier. So you're going to go and be like, okay, I need fire resistance. I have lightning resistance now. I'm going to use Flux 1 to turn this lightning resistance either into cold or fire. If it hits fire, great. If it doesn't hit fire, hits cold, now I have to use Flux 3 to reroll cold into lightning or fire. If it hits lightning, unfortunate. Hits fire, great, right? This is a possibility for how they're going to do it. It's going to be a little bit gambly. It's going to be, like Path of Exile loves their gambling, right? So this might be one way they do it, or they can do it this way, right? This is less gambly. This is more deterministic. So Flux 1, right, re-rolls lightning resistance to cold resistance. So you're like, let's say I need cold resistance. Boom. All I need to do is turn lightning resistance into cold. Great, 1 flux. But let's say you need fire resistance from your lightning resistance. Well, you're going to have to re-roll your lightning resistance to cold resistance, then re-roll your cold resistance to fire resistance. So it's kind of like a, chain order, right? It goes from lightning to cold to fire to lightning to cold to fire. So in the end, you're going to need to use 2 fluxes to get to fire and 1 flux to get to cold. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it potentially working in Path of Exile 2. This is not guaranteed. I don't have information. This is just what I surmise will happen. But this is like the biggest and most amazing buff ever. Now, if you get an item later on and you need to upgrade it and it doesn't have the right resistances, you can always swap them, which is amazing. But yeah, those are going to be the biggest buffs and nerfs, in my opinion, for this upcoming patch. And as I mentioned, there are way more buffs than nerfs. Way more nerfs than buffs. So if your class didn't get nerfed, you're kind of winning. Like, for example, Twisters right now are winning. But one thing we do have to note is that Grinding Gear Games does have a tendency to do post like initial patch updates, right? So before the game comes out, they're going to do a couple more pass-throughs of the patch and add more things. And my guess is that Twisters is probably going to get hit during that time, because in reality, Twisters was basically OP since 0.2, right? I've been saying that since 0.2. But nobody has really played it. They kind of don't like the playstyle. It takes a little bit of skill. So as a result, nobody was really talking about it. And now it really was only like the past week where people started talking about Twisters. So maybe Grinding Gear Games is like, hey, we understand Twisters is busted, but we don't know how to balance it yet. So give us some time. So in between now and the launch, they might take a look at Twisters and give it another pass, in addition to some of these other things as well. Like, for example, I mentioned earlier with Quippalotto's Thesis for mana regeneration. So this is what I'd say so far the biggest changes are, and I probably wouldn't see any too big changes coming up, but probably some smaller changes here and there, especially if people start theory crafting some things that could be completely broken. But yeah, that is what I saw as the biggest nerfs and buffs for this update so far. Let me know down in the comment section below if you think there's something else that belongs in this list. And as always, if you enjoyed this type of video, please, the best way to support the channel, let me know, is by hitting the sub button. It's completely free, and it also lets me know that you enjoyed the video. I also stream on twitch.tv/misoxshiro, so hopefully I get to see you guys there. And one more thing. For going forward, like these kind of like presentations, I'm gonna be also including them in like the I'm just gonna drop them into like my Patreon. Of course, like, you get this like literally right here while you're watching the video. But if you're the type of person that likes to have something in front of you, right, in your monitor that you can like play around with, I'm just gonna leave all these kind of charts and graphs and things like that in Patreon. So if you guys want to support the channel a little bit more and get access to these files, it's gonna be in there. So hopefully I see y'all on my stream, but if not, hopefully I see y'all on the next video. All right, guys. Peace.